Alright guys, so it's time for our last little discussion and information about this full day of eating video. Basically what I want to do is just take you through how it is that we accommodated for the higher calories over the next few days of eating. Then the next video, which I'm also shooting today, is going to give you a little bit of a better idea of what my normal meals would look like on a typical day of eating. All right, so what I'm going to do is actually just pull my phone out, and then I'll show you on the screen what I'm looking at right now. But basically on Saturday, which was June 26th, we finished on 4,642 calories. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this and put it on the screen right above me now. 4,642 calories, which was actually slightly under the goal amount of calories that I logged. I logged 4,710, finished on 4,642. Of that, 236 grams of protein, 587 grams of carbs, and 150 grams of fat. So this is not really way above what I would usually eat. This is about 45% over my average daily calories. What I try and do is come out somewhere around 3,100 to 3,200 calories per day on average. So you're looking at about 1,500 calories above my goal. Cinnamon one, and then a chocolate glaze with sprinkles, and then some kind of, I don't know, it looks like a Boston cream maybe. So I'm just going to have half of one. Fats and I usually share, so I'm just going to have half of one and let you guys know how it is on this particular day. So it was a little bit of a unusual Saturday in the sense that there was really only 2 full meals. It was a cream of rice meal, which I showed you earlier, and then it was obviously the pizza that we had for lunch. Everything else was kind of just like snacks, cookies, donuts, biscuits, ice cream, etc., etc. Typically speaking, how that is usually different is that I would typically have a few more full meals. And like I said, the goal for the week is coming out at about 3,100 to 3,200 calories. I just aim for that range, again, because it is the off season. I'm not having to be as super specific. Working within a range of 100 calories here, 100 calories there is just fine. So what I'm going to show you now is basically Thursday, which is my check-in day with Coach Paul, to Wednesday, which is today, how those calories have actually rounded out. So on Thursday last week, I consumed 3,329 calories. Friday, knowing that Saturday was going to be a much higher calorie day, I consumed 2,340. Then Saturday, like I said, was about 4,600. And then Sunday again, to accommodate for that, I was down to 2,274. Monday, I was down to 2,326. And then as of yesterday, we are back up to higher calories again, basically knowing that Friday, Sunday, and Monday, by lowering calories over that day, I'd essentially accommodated for the 1,500 calorie bump on the Saturday. So really by Tuesday we are back to an even playing field. So Tuesday is 3,243 calories. Today is about 3,100. And what I'll show you now and put on the screen is actually the calculated weekly average on Avatar on Carbon Diet Coach. You can see that's the app that I'm using. I'm not sure if that's going to focus, but that's Lane Norton's Carbon Diet Coach over there. It does all these calculations for you. Obviously, if you if you can't use that kind of app, if you're using MyFitnessPal, whatever the case is, that doesn't go this deep in calculating the data for you, you kind of have to do it on your own on a spreadsheet, which is why I'm using this. It just makes things a lot more simple. And then calories are obviously the most important thing when we're looking at weight gain versus weight loss. That being said, I do still have goal macronutrient targets to hit. So I have goal protein per day, goal carbohydrate per day, and goal fat per day. So just because you've come out to your weekly average of calories doesn't mean that you've come out to your weekly average of macronutrients. So in other words, I could have hit my calorie goal for the week, but I could have gone much higher on carbs and lower on fat, or much higher on fat and lower on carbs. For the average person, this is not a big deal, simply because as long as you're getting an adequate amount of protein per day in the off season, when you're trying to gain some muscle and add some lean tissue, that's going to be the main driver behind your results, is getting in enough protein and making sure that you're getting in enough calories. The remainder of those calories, whether they come predominantly from carbohydrates or fat, and whether that ratio changes on a day-to-day basis, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but it's slightly less important. For somebody that wants to optimize their results, typically speaking, that can be person to person dependent. But for me, I do operate slightly better on higher carbohydrates versus higher fat. And I also find that my mentality and my physiology is very responsive to consistency. So I do like to come in as close as possible to those actual macronutrient targets as possible versus just the calorie targets. So over the same period, and again, I'm going to screenshot this, so this is going to be Thursday to Wednesday, my goal protein consumption per day is about 185 grams. Now, some of you, that may sound low. However, the science does tell us that really you're maxing out the muscle building potential of protein consumption at about 2 grams per pound of body weight. Actually slightly lower than that, about 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. I'm currently sitting at about 183 pounds. So really looking at my max consumption being about 220 to 230 grams per day, and ideal consumption sitting at around somewhere between 180 and 200. So Paul's given me the instruction to come out about 185. My weekly average, I've just taken the screenshot now, is 191 between Thursday and Wednesday. So that's a decent margin of error there. Carbohydrates, my goal is to come out at about 450 grams a day. And this is where the high calorie day on the Saturday affects things a little bit, because the fat consumption is so high on those days. My weekly average has only come to about 412 grams of carbohydrates, so I'm slightly low on carbs. And then in terms of fat, my daily intake is supposed to be roughly around 65 grams per day. I find that I already start suffering in terms of fatigue, moodiness, and so on when my fat is any lower than 45 grams a day. And I already find my performance, mood, energy levels to be optimal at anywhere above 55 grams a day. So 60 to 65 grams is really good because of the high calorie day on Saturday. And remember, a lot of these very, very calorie dense foods are such because they are both very high in carbohydrates, but mainly very high in fat. Because fat contains 9 calories per gram, but just by definition, high fat foods are going to be a lot more calorically dense. So my weekly average for fast came at about 69 grams, so slightly higher, about 4 grams higher than it should be, but my carbs were slightly lower than they should be, but still within an acceptable range. It's not like my goal is 450 grams of carbs and I ended up at 220, and my goal fat is 65 and I came out at 110. It's within 10 to 20% margin of error, which again, I wouldn't advise during a strict contest prep phase, but during the off season, that's more than acceptable. What that means then, guys, is that my weight essentially since I finished the show, and like I discussed at the beginning of the video, I stood on stage at about 79.5 kilograms. A fair estimate would be that 1.5 to 2 kilograms of that was probably just due to depletion and dehydration. So let's call it about 81 kilograms. And I've been hovering around anywhere from 83 to 84 kilograms over the last 3 to 4 weeks. So my weekly average, bearing in mind that the day after the refeed, or after the high calorie day, I weighed in about 1.1 kilograms heavier, so I was up to about 85.6. As of this morning, which is Wednesday morning, I was actually down to my lowest weight that I've had for 3 weeks now, which was 83.1. And the weekly average from last week Thursday to today is 83.5. So it's literally stayed exactly the same as it was last week. So my weekly average, and that's really what you wanna base it on, because your trends in weight are can be, particularly in the off season, because there is a variance between days. There can be a variance in your mix of macronutrients, can be quite drastic. So you can see a kilogram and a half difference from one day to the next, even though your calorie consumption was roughly the same. Or you can see a massive bump up in weight after a much higher calorie day. So you really want to look at those weekly and monthly averages to see, are you maintaining, are you gaining? We right now kind of would typically want to be seeing a small, maybe 0.5 kilogram trend upwards over a month's period. So the fact that it stayed the same from my average weight stayed at 83.5 from last week to this week is definitely not a bad thing. And typically that would mean that chances are that on the next update, the coach would add in slightly more food or decrease cardio slightly, or a combination of both, to keep the scale moving in the right direction. This would typically mean that we've established what my new maintenance level of calories is. So maintaining my weight at roughly 3,150 calories per day. That's essentially the adjustments that I made to make sure that calorie goals are met over the course of the week, macronutrient goals are met over the course of the week, and just more evidence in showing that daily weight readings on the scale are irrelevant in the bigger picture versus looking at weekly and monthly trends in order to gauge your progress. If I had gone by just what my weight was on Sunday morning when I woke up after my high calorie day, I could have lost my mind and been, I gained almost 2 kilograms of fat overnight. That's not the case. By the next day, I was already half a kilogram down. By 3 days later, I've actually had my lowest weight that I've had in 3 weeks. So you have to look at the week in context. Your body is not a fixed system that's going to gain fat overnight or lose muscle overnight, whatever the scenario is. It's a moving mechanism that is constantly in a state of burning fat, gaining fat, assimilating amino acids, breaking down amino acids, and the net balance over a period of time is what's going to reflect your net result. So as opposed to some people, that doesn't mean that I don't recommend weighing in every day. Quite the opposite. In order to find those weekly and monthly trends, it's very important that you do weigh in every day. So that's where we're sitting right now, a weekly average of 83.5 kilograms. That's how I've accommodated for my high calorie days since the show day.
Look, go away. Read some books.